blow this up.
Look alive, Bomb Squad. We are back for another installment of Let's Blow This Up. I'm your host, Jason Sircone, and it's another episode from the Season 3 solo series. Today, I want to talk about 5 intangible results that you'll get from consistent podcasting. Now, of course, as podcasters, we want to grow, right? We want our show to reach as many people as possible. We want to impact audiences on a grand scale. It's all about massive numbers, right? Wrong. Let's slow down a bit and realize that there are things that are going to happen in the podcasting process that are going to be very beneficial to everything that we do in our lives. Now, I know that the podcast gurus of the world, and you've probably heard us talk about this on several episodes throughout season 3 and even further back in the catalog. And if you follow me for a long time, you know I'm on this soapbox often, that so many people will let you know the only way to be successful in podcasting is if you have massive numbers. I hate that mindset. And I've done what I could this season to break that down as much as possible, hopefully eradicate it as much as possible. And I'm going to continue to do that today. One of the big things that I've always loved about podcasting is not only does it allow me to produce great content and come to you with great episodes to learn about podcasting and learn about how you can utilize it to grow your business, but in the act of doing the podcast, I am always working on skills that I use not just here in the podcast space, but also in other areas of my life. And that's something that I really want you to take to heart and really think about with your podcast. Yes, you want your podcast to serve as a strong marketing piece for your brand. You want your podcast to let people know who you are, what you do, and how you can help them solve a problem. You want to use your podcast to create marketing assets so you can repurpose your podcast for videos and for blogs and for emails and for social media content. As we've covered throughout season 3 of Let's Blow This Up, there is so much versatility baked into your podcast. But what I really want to emphasize today are those intangible things, the things that you can't hold in your hand, but they are incredibly important and can benefit you in so many ways. So let's get to it. Number 1, better public speaking skills. Now, you may not be thinking about going the speaker route. You may not be looking to be on stage, but more than likely, there is going to be some type of environment where you're going to be thrust into a public speaking scenario. Being on the podcast mic on a consistent basis allows you to become a more eloquent speaker because by default, you are constantly flexing those muscles and you're developing new skills that will make you a better public speaker. You know, I've mentioned this quote, or I guess it's a bit from Jerry Seinfeld many times on this show about how he has said the number 1 fear in the world is public speaking. And number 2 is death. And that means to the average person, if they were to go to a funeral, they'd be better off in the coffin than up on the stage giving the eulogy. And it's of course a very funny bit, but it's also very true because so many people fear that public speaking scenario so much that they will run and hide whenever they can. But in the podcasting space, you're having one-on-one conversations. As I talk to you today here in the solo format, I'm having a one-on-one conversation with you. When you are creating a podcast with guests, you are having a one-on-one conversation or a one-on-two conversation. If you bring it down to that level in the way that you create content, it simplifies the whole process and it allows you to focus on having great conversations versus being in performance mode, where you think you're on stage in front of thousands, maybe even millions of people. So those skills of having a conversation and using the microphone to flex those muscles and consistently put in the reps can easily translate to any public speaking environment. Now, I know in my practices, I'm part of networking groups where I am constantly talking in front of my bigger networking groups. There's also times where I'm in front of 10 to 15 people at a time. I've also been on stage at conferences where I've talked to hundreds of people at a time. I know full well that my skill set is better because I've been podcasting for over 10 years. I use this platform to master those speaking skills. And believe me, I don't feel like I am at all accomplished in this space. I know I've gotten better and I know I can hold my own, but I refuse to get complacent. So I am constantly thinking about that as I'm having conversations, finding new ways to project my voice and new ways to tell stories and relay my message so I can have a better impact. And then I know those skills will translate to the next time I'm in front of a big group or the next time that I'm on a stage. So thinking about how this whole medium will develop your public speaking skills is a great intangible that you can carry with you, and it adds a new layer to everything you do with your podcast. Speaking of that, and really just piggybacking on the whole public speaking skills, I say the second intangible is improved communication skills and improved communication abilities. Now, again, you may not be doing this from a stage or projecting your message towards a lot of people, but in your normal day-to-day, you are going to find yourself in a lot of scenarios where communication is key. You want to make sure that you are doing your best to communicate your message, to make sure that other people in your circle know exactly what your expectations are. If you're at work, your communication skills with your colleagues, with people underneath you, your clients, your customers, it's so important that you are communicating with them properly so they know what's going on and they know how their role is going to play a role in the overall growth of your company. And just as your customers come in, they need to have a clear vision of what they're going to experience. If you can't clearly communicate that, more than likely they're going to go somewhere else. So as you're on the podcast microphone and you're having those conversations, you're learning new ways to communicate. You're learning new ways to have those conversations. And just like with the public speaking intangible, as you develop these skills and your muscles grow, you're going to become much more effective at how you talk to people at work. Take it outside of work to your family and with your friends and with people that you communicate on a non-professional level. Having strong communication skills is absolutely paramount in those interactions. If you are doing your part to clearly communicate with your loved ones so they know exactly what's going on in the household or what's going on in the whole family dynamic, you are going to shine. And that is going to strengthen all of the relationships that you have. This is another skill that can be worked out and worked on as you develop your podcast. So talk about killing multiple birds with multiple stones, right? You can not only create great content that relays a powerful message to your audience, but you can also hone those skills that are going to help you have more powerful conversations in your day-to-day life. That's pretty damn powerful. And if there's nothing else that you would wrap your arms around with podcasting, I think that's the one that you really should. Because having those powerful communication skills, believe me, in today's world, that is going to make you stand out. Number 3, and this is a big one in the podcast space. I know this is a very big objective with a lot of folks that I talk to, and for good reason. The third intangible is establishing authority in your space. Having authority, being seen as a thought leader, positioning yourself as a resource and an asset that can help people get from point A to point B, that's going to make all the difference. And a podcast puts you in a position to where people can discover you, they can confide in you, they can listen to what you have to say, they can absorb your stories, they can take your message in, and if it jives, if what you have to say is for them and they love what you have to say, you are now building trust. That trust is going to lead to multiple opportunities with that person. So if you happen to maybe run into them in person at a conference, you may experience somebody saying, "Hey, I love your podcast. I listen to you every week." Or whenever you're dropping new content, "I love what you have to say." Or they might get specific and say, on episode 24, you talked about X, Y, and Z. I can't tell you how much that changed my line of thinking. That's authority. That is positioning yourself as a resource in your space that people can turn to, that people can trust, and people can patronize. So if you want to grow your business and take your brand to a new level, establishing authority is where it starts. And your podcast is a tremendous foundation to help you do that, because not only will the podcast itself help you establish that authority, but you'll now have a wealth of assets that you can repurpose so you impact your audience in other outlets, through email, on your website, through blogs, through forums, through social media. Wherever you're looking to build that presence, your podcast can serve as the catalyst to give you what you need to talk about. That will make you stand out, and that's going to put you on a higher level, thus positioning you as that authority that you want to be. The more consistently you show up with great content that brings impact and lets people know that you are the one, you are the guy, you are the girl, you are the resource that's going to change their life, put you on a whole new plane. And in today's world, a lot of options and a lot of noise, and unfortunately, a lot of people who will scorch the earth. If you want to be one of those resources that stands out for all the good reasons, utilize the podcast microphone to hone your craft, to tell your story, and to bring more people into your orbit. That authority will get established the more consistently you show up and the more often you tell people exactly what they need to hear. Now, will that hit everybody? Of course not. We're never going to be in a position to where we can make a 100% impact. But the more consistently you bring good content to the world, the more the right people are going to show up for it, be impacted by it, and ultimately follow your call to action. And who knows where it can go from there. The opportunities are endless, but you've got to make sure you're establishing that authority first. And your podcast can help you do just that. Number 4, wider knowledge base. How cool is it that you get to sit with somebody else and have a conversation and learn about their perspective on things? More than likely, if you're building a podcast, unless you're doing 100% solo, which is totally fine, I have absolutely nothing against that. In fact, we've got a couple episodes that'll be coming up as we wind down season 3, where we talked about specifically building solo podcasts and how I believe, and some of my cohorts in this season also believe, that there are some people that might not think that's an option. Because the general rule of thumb is that when you build a podcast, you're bringing on guests. Believe me, this is how the majority of podcasts are built and operated. But there's nothing saying that you can't do a solo podcast. That's a story for another day. You'll hear that on future episodes. When you get the opportunity to connect with others, whether you just do now let me backtrack real quick. I will say my ratio when you're doing a podcast is 3-to-1. You do 3 solo episodes and then have a guest. Now, my format here does not speak to that because of the way that I structured my season. But if you were doing a weekly format, 3 solo episodes and then followed up with an interview, and then do 3 more and then an interview. Why? Because you want your audience to see you as that resource, to be as that asset. When you bring in guests, yes, they can absolutely bring credibility to your show. They can help further that point and push things forward. But when a guest joins a podcast, typically they're the focal point. You want to make sure that you are the person people understand is the resource. You are the person they are tuning in for. So if you want to bring guests on your show, make sure you're doing it in the right way. And if you do a guest every week, again, nothing wrong with that either, but make it conversational. Make sure that both of your expertise shine. Don't try to make it all about the guest unless that's the type of show you're building, to where it does feature the guest and you're there to just ask them good questions so you can have that type of conversation. Nothing wrong with any of this, but the point that I'm driving at for today's conversation, the fact that you get to make a connection with somebody and pick their brain, ask them questions, learn about their slant on things, it's only going to make you a smarter professional going forward. So if you utilize the podcast space to have powerful conversations, your knowledge base by default is going to explode. And there's nothing wrong with that either, because you will now have somebody else's perspective to utilize in your own arsenal. And you may 100% agree what they have to say and maybe even adopt what they're telling you into your practices. Or you may not fully agree and you may say, okay, that's something to think about, food for thought. But overall, that's just not fitting into my overall dynamic. Either way, your knowledge base is going to grow significantly by consistently showing up on the podcast and having those conversations. Now, I will also spin this with a slight caveat. Preparing for your solo episodes is also going to increase your knowledge base, because if you go into your solo episodes, you want to make sure that you're formatting things out. There are going to be key points that you want to discuss. And as you do that, your knowledge base grows just by putting that information together and then flexing your muscles as you tell the story to your audience. Having that type of knowledge base goes way beyond the podcast space. This is going to help you have more intelligent conversations with your peers, with your loved ones, with your colleagues, with your customers. And the more well-rounded you are, the better off you're going to be as a professional in this world. And the fifth intangible that I want to share that you're going to get from consistent podcasting, and this one's been talked about already a few times here on this season of Let's Blow This Up, a larger network of your peers. Now, whether you're bringing these people onto your show as guests, whether you are putting yourself out there as a guest on other established podcasts, or you're just in the podcast world with other people in your arena, you now have more people that you can connect with and have conversations with. And I speak from absolute experience on this. The podcast medium can be the catalyst that makes your network grow by leaps and bounds. I have made so many professional contacts. I have made so many friends, and I've developed my client base through podcasting. In a lot of ways, it's because my podcast has started the conversation, and as people have heard what I've had to say, they wanted to continue that conversation on another level. Or when I go into a room and talk about what I'm building as a podcast and the things I talk about, people that are interested in learning more instantly see me as someone they can turn to and learn from. So now they want to learn more about podcasting. They are in my circle. They are in my orbit. They are listening to my show. They are reaching out to me directly. We're having those powerful conversations. And whether they become a client or not, that's something that can be determined down the road. For me, I'm all about bringing value to the world. This is the arena that I've chose to play in. And it's my duty on a daily basis to provide information, education, entertainment, all the things that make you understand why you're in my arena to begin with. That's my job. I'm here to bring that to you. That is going to grow my network exponentially, because the hopes are that you learn something from this podcast or from a conversation with me, and then you share that with somebody else in one way, shape, or form, whether it be through your social media channels or just through word of mouth. Whatever it takes to get the word spread. If I'm the one that started that conversation, I love that you're taking it to another level. And by extension, that grows my network, because that's another person I can speak to. So the fact that you are watching this video or you are listening to this podcast recording today, that tells me that you are here for a damn good reason. And I am damn glad to have you part of the Let's Blow This Up and Bombtrack Media family. I want to take this network as far as it can go. And I understand that doing my podcast on a consistent basis or doing extensions of my podcast through other platforms, that's going to lead to the conversations it takes to grow my network. So if you're looking at podcasting from a pure downloads perspective and saying, this is the only way I'm successful because Guru over here told me that, tell that person to shut up and think about it on this level. You're going to get much further in your development for your career by building a network of people you can turn to. How do you establish that network? By having powerful conversations. If you have a podcast that you are consistently looking to build content for, you can either welcome people onto your show to share their perspectives, or you can use a solo approach to get in front of these people and show them exactly what you need to know, or what they need to know, That can then fuel and stimulate additional conversations that take place on other platforms. You share clips on Instagram or on Facebook or on TikTok or on YouTube, or you just share full videos on YouTube, whatever the case may be. Social media can be a great platform for those conversations to take place. In addition, I love that the podcast content can be taken beyond the digital environment and it can be utilized in real world scenarios, maybe a panel, maybe just in a one-on-one discussion. I know I've been in one-on-one scenarios through my networking groups where I'm talking with somebody and saying, yeah, I talked about this on my podcast. I'd love for you to listen and give me some feedback. I'm happy to talk to you about it now, but if you want to take some time to learn even more, you'll get a full range of my perspective by checking out episode 23 or whatever it may be. So having that Rolodex of content in your back pocket makes for more stimulating conversations. And again, if you're in that real world setting, you never know who might be listening and who can use that information that you're providing to take their game to the next level. There are a lot more intangibles that we can get into today, but I'm going to cut it off at 5. If you've discovered any intangibles in your podcasting practice that you would like to share, please reach out to me at jason@bombtrackmedia.com and let me know what those intangibles are. And I'll make sure that you're credited for those intangibles as well. But for today's conversation, public speaking skills, better communication skills, increasing authority, building a wider knowledge base, and enhancing your network. Those are 5 intangibles that downloads can't touch. It doesn't matter if your show has 5 listeners, 100 listeners, 100,000 listeners, or anywhere in between there. These intangibles are skills that you're going to be able to utilize as you grow as a professional and as you grow as a human. Keep that front of mind, and that's going to help you keep your eye on the ball, and it's going to make you want to show up more consistently for your audience. And with that, we're going to wind down this episode of Let's Blow This Up. We are officially in the home stretch of season 3 of this podcast. I hope you've been having a great time, because I know I have. Make sure you're following, make sure you subscribed, make sure you click the bell on YouTube so you know when new episodes go live. Please don't be a dick about this. Until our paths cross again here on Let's Blow This Up, my name is Jason Cercone, reminding you to stay explosive.